Cox, and I wanted to talk to you today about what you can do to help to relieve trigger point pain, so pain felt in your muscle, and why it works. So what we're talking about is self-myofascial relief. So you just came home from the gym, you did a really hard lifting day, your biceps are killing you, and you can feel it. You feel that little point where it's more tense than every other spot. And so, what are you going to do? You're going to treat it with self-myofascial release. Simply put, you're going to straighten out that arm, lengthen out the muscle, find that spot, either with your hand or another implement, where it's really tight, and apply pressure for about 30 seconds, which will cause release in the muscle. But for us to really understand what's going on, we need to look a little bit more deeply at the muscle physiology. To start with, what's causing the muscle to get tight? Inside your muscle, the very basic building block is what's called a sarcomere. You can picture it as just a little itty bitty cell lined up like this, with little hooks in it that hook just like Velcro and tighten closer together and release. Now these are really tiny. If you imagine that you took a bunch of these little sarcomeres and bundled it up together like you would firewood, and then lined out, let's say 10,000 in a row, and then 10,000 in a row the other way, that'd be about the width of your fingernail. So we're talking about a really small area. So these points, let's say, you have a couple sarcomeres that get hooked. And they get hooked when they don't have enough energy, and that comes from what you're eating, the molecules inside you, just what you're putting into your body. So let's say they get caught. It might be because you're fatigued, or there's too much sunlight, you're too hot, you're too cold, you're stressed, any number of things. One muscle's tighter than the other. It's really hard to tell, but everybody has them. It's just a fact of life. So let's say you get a couple hundred sarcomeres that are stuck together, and they're really tight, and they're causing pressure. What's actually happening in the cell is similar to if you locked your car in your garage with no airflow. You'd get all of that exhaust coming out and filling up the atmosphere with a toxic atmosphere with nowhere for it to go. It's similar to this. You're getting those used up molecules in there, you've got swelling, inflammation, and unlike not having the airflow, you're not having blood flow to clear it out. So essentially you're getting sick muscle. Just like when you have a stuffed up nose, that's kind of what's happening to your muscle, and it causes pain. So if it is painful, what can we do? How can we get rid of it? Well, let's look at another factor of muscle. There's two things in your muscle that are going to be able to help to relieve this and monitor what's going on. And those are called mechanoreceptors. Really simply, a mechanoreceptor is just kind of like a neuron that sends impulses up to your brain and your spinal cord of what it's feeling. So there's two types. One you're going to have is a muscle spindle. Sounds really fancy, but all it is monitoring the length change of the muscle. So if I'm using my bicep, is it long or is it short? And how fast is it going that way? For instance, if I go really fast and I get really long really fast, it's going to send a reaction to say, contract, get tight, because your muscle doesn't want to split open and it's going to protect you. Okay, so that's a muscle spindle. We're going to call them, for the purposes today, a length sensor. All right, the second type is called a GTO, or a Golgi tendon organ, and this is going to be a tension sensor. So similar to the other measuring length, it's measuring how much tension is being placed on the muscle. If it gets too tense to avoid the muscle breaking, it's going to cause the muscle to just relax. I'm not going to contract, I'm just going to relax to avoid causing damage. So those two things work together to help you to avoid injury. But it's also what causes your trigger points because of something called autogenic inhibition, which is another really fancy term that can be explained by using our length sensors and our tension sensors. So let's say I have my muscle lengthened out and I'm putting pressure on a point, say a trigger point. I'm going to put enough tension on that it's going to cause the muscle to release because the tension sensor is telling it to release. And it's overriding that length sensor because the length sensor is telling it to contract, but the other is telling it to release. But the tension sensor has more power and more input based on the length of time and the pressure that's put on it. That's why we're holding it for about 30 seconds. The 30 seconds allows that inhibition to occur. You're inhibiting the length sensor from causing the muscle to contract. So what results is a lengthened muscle getting lengthened and relaxed even further. So that's how causing the self-myofascial release is going to lengthen your muscle, increase your flexibility, and just improve the overall health of the muscle. So now we know what's happening and why it's happening. Let's take a look at how do we go ahead and use self-myofascial relief for our benefit. There's a couple different ways that we can go about doing it based on the intensity of the injury. So let's say you just worked out or you're planning on working out and you're just a little bit tight overall the whole area. It's not a specific point. In that instance, we're going to use something called a foam roller. It's just a dense piece of foam. You can make one yourself. Just put PVC and then foam over top. Otherwise, you can buy them pretty generically at most stores for 15 to 20 bucks. So I'm going to go ahead and use it on the floor. Go ahead and let's say I want to stretch out my pectoralis muscle, which is a muscle right down here in the butt. So I'm going to sit on it with the back of my hip placed on it, and I want to stretch the muscle ahead of time because I need to put it in that lengthened position. So I'm going to go ahead and do a stretching exercise for it, which for the pectoralis, you would go ahead and bend that knee, place the opposite knee with that foot flexed, and lean into it. This is going to cause stretch through that muscle. And then I'm going to slowly roll over it. So this is doing that exact same thing that we talked about. You're just putting pressure on that muscle and allowing that autogenic inhibition to occur. So you're overcoming that response to want to contract and allow it to lengthen more fully. So that's a really simple way to go about it. You can do this with any part of your body. You could lay over top and use your adductors. You could do your quads, your hamstrings, your calves, anything that you want to roll over the foam roller. But let's say that you just got done and you have a really tight spot, let's say in your quad. Then I can use something like a tennis ball, a lacrosse ball, or anything you really have available at your house. Again, I'm stretching out the muscle. So I've got it flexed. I find that spot where it hurts, and then I'm just pressing in with the ball, making sure to hold it for 30 seconds. Now I can either just hold it straight down or make little circles. Either way will work really well. There's really no way that you can hurt yourself doing this, which is what's great about it, because you're not going to put so much pressure on it so as to actually hurt yourself. Kind of use the Goldilocks rule, where it's got to be just right. Not too soft, not too hard. The last thing is, let's say it really does hurt and it's swollen and it's puffy and you're kind of concerned that you might actually be injured. A great way to treat that is to take a styrofoam cup, fill it up with water, and then put it in the freezer to make ice. Then do the exact same thing. Let's say I have a pressure point right on my bicep. I can go ahead and put pressure there. And again, just small little circles for 30 seconds. And this way I'm also getting ice to the area to just improve the healing. So just based on what you need, go ahead and give self-myofascial reliefs a try. And in summary, self-myofascial reliefs can help you to get rid of some of that little bit of tension left in your muscle. Just lengthen and press and hold for about 30 seconds. Thanks. Bye.